Hey everyone, these large building projects have caused serious controversy for one reason or another. Megaprojects built in poor neighborhoods, underpaid workers, and slave labor. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the top 15 most controversial building projects in the world. Let's begin. Number 15. The Three Gorges Dam. One of the great civil engineering wonders of the world, the Three Gorges Dam in China is the largest hydroelectric dam in the world, with a generation capacity of a whopping 22.5 gigawatts, totally eclipsing most other dams. This dam sits on the Yangtze River. The Three Gorges Dam took 40,000 workers to construct over just 12 years, and the project in its entirety cost between $28 and $88 billion. While that's a pretty big gap, the Chinese government likes to be a bit hush-hush on the subject. It's also the largest concrete structure on Earth, and the idea behind it was born back in the year 1919. But it took about 80 years for the commission to pass by the National People's Congress as a monument to Chinese engineering. It's a massive source of renewable energy and replaced the burning of 30 million tons of coal each year, and it used enough steel to build 63 Eiffel Towers. It gives energy to over 60 million Chinese people every year, but something that massive has to garner some controversy. The construction of the Three Gorges Dam displaced 1.3 million people and destroyed historical excavation areas, and 100 workers died while building it. But the biggest impact of the dam is still on the environment, as nearby fish populations are in decline and pollution is increasing as the river is no longer able to clean itself as it's choked off by the dam. So it should come as no surprise that something so big must also come at such a large price. Number 14. The Walkie Center. If you look at the building at 20 Fenchurch Street in London, you'll be impressed, but you'll also probably be left scratching your head. Perhaps better known as the Talkie, this incredibly top-heavy building was built with just one thing in mind: money, and lots of it. The building almost balloons up at the top to maximize the floor space of the higher stories, which would allow the owners to charge even higher rents the further up you go. And although I think it's a complete eyesore in the London skyline, they actually built it shorter than they originally planned. It wasn't just the height that made the Walkie a disaster, too. It was actually the shape of the windows. The building has a curved facade, which reflected the light into such concentrated beams that they sometimes melted cars and started fires. Sunshades were placed over the glass on the higher levels to reduce those heat lasers, but the shape of the building still directs powerful gusts of wind down to the street level. The Walkie, it may be a better idea for a fortress than a luxury office building. Number 13. The Diamond Tower. The next entry on our list doesn't quite exist yet, but it's on its way to becoming one of the most impressive buildings of any kind in the world. Construction on the Diamond Tower in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia began in 2016, but unfortunately it was put on hold in July of 2020. But what makes the Diamond Tower so special? Well, this twisting tower is said to be 1,400 feet high with 93 stories and will be Saudi Arabia's second tallest building, as well as one of the tallest residential buildings in the world. Imagine waking up every morning to the sunrise on the 93rd floor. But the Diamond Tower was also designed to twist a full 360 degrees from around top to bottom, making it the first building in the world to do so. When this super skyscraper will actually be done is anybody's guess, but without a doubt, it's one of the most ambitious architectural undertakings ever. The project's on track to cost at least $1.5 billion, and when you've got that much money involved in something like this, there tend to be some controversial findings in the books. Saudi Arabia has recently begun to crack down on corruption, and many of the business people bankrolling this tower have found themselves caught in the middle and thrown in the slammer under the pretense that their financial involvement is one big financial scheme. Number 12. Hudson Yards. Some things you'll only get in New York: dirty water francs, chopped cheese, pizza rat, celebrity sightings, and the $25 billion project Hudson Yards. This Hudson Yards is a real estate development sitting on the borders of the Chelsea and Hudson Yard neighborhoods in Manhattan, with its own subway stop. It's the largest urban development since Rockefeller Center, and although you can visit, shop, and live here, the project's still ongoing until 2024. By that time, 13 out of the 16 planned structures will sit on a platform built over the West Side Yard, overlooking the storage yard for the Long Island Railroad trains. How beautiful! Well, since it officially opened in 2012, Hudson Yards saw plenty of tourists and angry New Yorkers alike, all gawking at not just the nouveau riche aesthetic, but at the vessel. The vessel is a giant 16-story structure with 154 flights of stairs meant to resemble a honeycomb. And other than being the main feature of Hudson Yards and costing $200 million in taxpayer money, it really doesn't do much else. Number 11. John Hancock Tower. The award for the tallest building in Boston, Massachusetts went to the John Hancock Tower after construction was completed in the 1970s. The original plan showed that it would tower over the local historical Trinity Church, causing controversy before construction even began. And this only proved to be an ill omen of things to come for what is now simply referred to as 200 Clarendon Street. John Hancock Tower was originally built with blue reflective glass, which began to fall off down to the street below, piece by piece, and police had to quickly close off the area around the building. At first, it was believed that the buildings in the area created a wind tunnel, and these high-powered winds would expose integrity issues, twist the glass panels, and eventually whisk the panels away. But researchers discovered the real issue. The building was expanding and contracting at a rapid speed because of the vastly different temperatures inside and outside of the building. This caused the glass panels to be stiffer than originally expected, and instead of absorbing motion, the panels transferred it and shook the energy out of place. All of the 10,344 windows of the John Hancock Tower needed to be replaced by more appropriate single-pane heat-treated panels. And because plywood was quickly replacing the fallen windows, the building earned the nickname the Plywood Palace. Number 10. The Guggenheim Museum. Easily one of New York City's most popular and memorable museums, the Guggenheim was designed by the late great Frank Lloyd Wright, but it wasn't completed until 1959 after his death. But he came up with the brilliant idea for a cylindrical stack that doesn't look like anything else on the island of Manhattan. The Guggenheim truly is one of a kind. And as the building spirals upward, the cylinders expand towards the building's glass ceiling, making it look almost like an upside-down beehive. And when you step inside, it's simple yet breathtaking as you seamlessly wind your way up the museum's galleries. Wright had claimed that the unique design would make the building and the paintings an uninterrupted, beautiful symphony, such as never existed in the world of art before. And boy, did he deliver. It's not often that a building's exterior is engineered to reflect the look and feel of the interior. But there was some trouble with the curve here, and many curators and artists were none too thrilled about the design. Why? Well, have you ever tried hanging art on a curved surface? Number 9. Sky Pool, the UK. The Sky Pool is a swimming pool at the Embassy Gardens development in the Nine Elms region of Wandsworth, a borough of southwest London. It's suspended an absurd 115 feet above the ground and forms a bridge between two tall apartment buildings. Extending between the two legacy buildings of the Embassy Gardens development, the pool is fully heated, and not just because it's so close to the sun. It's 82 feet in length, but it's the middle 45-foot section of the pool that's actually suspended over the street. But the controversy comes when you realize just who the pool is for. When it comes to urban development, it would seem that in the last few decades, cities and developers have left many middle and lower middle-class people far behind, building things that only the wealthy can enjoy. And whether it's fair or not, it's certainly an uncomfortable truth. And even worse, the sky pool becomes quite the literal metaphor as swimmers look down on the other people below them. So needless to say that when the sky pool was proposed in 2015, many of the local residents and activists were up in arms. Number 8. La Sagrada Familia. Designed by the Catalan architect Antonio Gaudí, La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona is a church like no other. Built in 1882, this towering landmark is smack dab in the middle of a city and still manages to look like it houses a princess just waiting to be rescued. The outside is full of towering spires, beautiful facades, and amazing masonry. It's the interior, though, that will really take your breath away. When you walk inside, you'll see the walls are absolutely bathed in colors and lights, which are amplified by all the stained glass windows throughout. Once the sun hits just the right spot, there's really nothing quite like it. The columns inside that hold the structure together are meant to look like thick, tall trees with ornate geometric designs all over. The building itself is a work of art, and just trying to wrap your head around how much time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears went into crafting all of the intricate, minute details of the La Sagrada Familia makes your head spin. But what's even crazier is that despite being nearly 200 years old, it's not even done yet. This is the longest-running building project in the world, with the current architect stating that it will be done by 2026, but the odds of that happening seem pretty slim at the moment. Number 7. Antilia Residential Tower. And now for something a little bit different. The Antilia Tower in Mumbai, India is one of the most extravagant and expensive places to live in the world, and it is one of the most expensive. The Antilia Tower was designed in part with Chicago architecture firm Perkins & Will and the Santa Monica hospitality design firm Hirschbender Associates, all for one man, Indian businessman and billionaire Mukesh Ambani. And unlike your typical mega mansion, Antilia Tower builds not just out, but up with 400,000 square feet of space and 27 stories that Ambani doesn't have to share with anybody. And of course, this massive home has plenty of cool stuff inside, like a 50-seat movie theater, 6 floors devoted to just car storage, a car service station, a temple, and 9 high-speed elevators to get you from the top to bottom and back again in a flash. And oh yeah, there's a snow room. There's a room that sprays snowflakes from the walls. It's absolutely crazy. And I guess he makes his own private winter wonderland in India. He spent between $1 and $2 billion to make it happen. The catch here is that this multi-billion-dollar home overlooks the poor neighborhoods and stands as a testament to the growing divide between the uber-rich and the poor in a country where nearly 100 million people live below the poverty line. So yeah, it's safe to say that when Ambani's neighbors found out he was building a 60-story garage, they weren't too thrilled. Number 6. Wakrah Stadium. The Wakrah Stadium was built to host the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Doha, Qatar. The controversy began when the designs were revealed, but they were mostly harmless because all they did was criticize the look of the stadium, nothing too crazy. But then when construction began, things got a little more serious. Migrant workers were hired to build the stadium. However, they were severely underpaid and mistreated, and more than 1,000 of them died during the construction. When the architects behind the project, Zaha Hadid Architects, were asked to comment on the matter, they simply said it wasn't their job to take steps to prevent worker harm. Then FIFA promised to oversee working conditions, only to come under fire as well for alleged corruption during Qatar's World Cup bid. It's a pretty bad look for all parties involved, but considering Qatar is not just one of the richest countries on the Asian continent, but in the world, and they continue to exploit some of the poorest people in the world, there's a lot to be upset about here when it comes to the Wakrah Stadium. Number 5. The World Islands. Dubai's World Islands may sound like a fun idea, but if you take a moment to sit and really think about it, it's pretty lame and pointless. Composed of 300 man-made islands, one for each country, they're meant to look like a map of the world. Construction began in 2003, and it came to a grinding halt in 2008 after the financial crisis. And with 60% of the construction being done by private contractors, this project, while ambitious, was probably doomed from the start. And by 2021, only 9 of the 300 islands were ready for visitors and commercial use. They also require the sand to be moved to the area and require the volume equivalent to 150 pro baseball stadiums to make. But erosion and weather have made quick work of what was already put in place. The islands don't have their own source of electricity either, and the project to run cable under the Gulf was a bust too. The construction of these fake islands decimated the local environment, destroying coral reefs and burying oyster beds, therefore killing off local marine life at an alarming rate. This entire thing cost $14 billion in a city with a poverty rate of 20%. Not a good look. Number 4. The Garden Bridge. The River Thames is an iconic attraction in London, England, with an incredibly rich history. So back in 1998, actress Joanna Lumley suggested creating a bridge that would not only be a floating paradise, but serve as a memorial for the late but beloved Princess Diana. The idea remained dormant until 2012, when it started to gain some momentum again, and UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson saw the Garden Bridge concept as his legacy for London. Cut to 2021, and the bridge is not only non-existent, but the project has been scrapped altogether. So what the hell happened? Well, millions of pounds were raised for the project, both privately and with public taxes, but delays caused by the utter failure to secure land rights on both sides of the Thames and the need for more money finally caused the Mayor of London to kill the project in 2017. And while the Garden Bridge could have been amazing with its proposed gorgeous walkways, trees, and flowers, the sheer bureaucracy of the project failed its construction, and £46 million worth of public money may have well been tossed over the bridge into the water below. Number 3. The Burj Khalifa. Dubai's an interesting city, and it would seem that the powers that be there have created it to show off their engineering prowess and money to the rest of the world. And say what you will about it, but the Burj Khalifa is one of the most impressive feats of engineering, probably of all time. The Burj Khalifa was actually inspired by the Empire State Building, and $1.5 billion later stands at an absurd 2,719 feet tall. Construction began in 2004 and ended in 2010, so about 6 years if you hate math. It's also the tallest building in the world. It doesn't seem like anyone is going to be able to stop it anytime soon. Maybe. It's almost 1,000 feet taller than the world's next tallest building. The Burj Khalifa has a shamrock-shaped base to give it maximum support and a perfect view from just about anywhere inside the building. What truly is wild is that once construction started, the engineers and construction teams were able to build at a rate of 30 floors in less than a single year. When you build something on this scale and this quickly, there's bound to be some controversy. Construction workers on the Burj Khalifa have rioted on several occasions, including in March of 2006, when 2,500 of them protested at the site, and again in November of 2007. A Human Rights Watch survey found a cover-up of deaths from heat, overwork, and suicide in the emirate. The Indian consulate recorded 971 deaths of their nationals in 2005, after which they were asked to stop counting. And then there are the effects on the environment. The Burj Khalifa's air conditioning system is said to be the equivalent of melting 12,000 tons of ice a day and burns through the equivalent of 50,000 100-watt light bulbs in a day, in a city that has the world's highest per capita carbon footprint. The building was made to last up to a century, and while that may sound impressive, the Empire State Building in New York is estimated to stand for another 7,000 years. Pile all of this on top of the fact that the UAE is one of the richest countries in the world, but has 20% poverty rate. You're looking at one of the most expensive and controversial buildings in the world. Number 2. Forest City Johor. The 20-year project that is the Forest City Johor in Malaysia is a 3,300-acre area that's a mix of residences and over-the-top gardens. It is an incredibly ambitious mega-project, yes, but it's also proven to be much more trouble than perhaps it's worth. For starters, the country set a target of 700,000 units sold, but by 2019, only 500 residents called Johor their home. So, as it stands, that is a massive financial failure, and someone's got to foot the bill. But problems began even at the start of construction, when cracks and the like began to show in many of the city's buildings and roads. The problem here is that much of the land was reacclimated, and the weight of the infrastructure was preventing the soil from properly settling, therefore causing it to sink. City planners all agreed that it would continue to do so over time, so Johor was marketed as an eco-friendly and energy-efficient city, and it's proven itself to be anything but. The damage caused by the reclamation of the land and poor planning has already caused irreversible damage, and corruption is prevalent at various levels of this project. So it may not be totally fair to call the Forest City of Johor useless, but it may be fair to call it a pointless and expensive failure. Number 1. Sochi Olympic Hotels. Olympic athletes train for years for the opportunity to not only compete, but to travel to new and distant locations that they may not be able to normally experience. And when all is said and done, they may be sad to head home, but nobody misses the Sochi Olympics. Despite knowing full well that they would be hosting the Olympics and having a 7-year advance notice, Russia blew it big time. Many of the hotels built specially to house the athletes weren't even close to being complete by the time the athletes showed up, and many of them didn't even have clean or running water, and there were even reports of rooms not having any light bulbs or even doorknobs on the doors. It was absolutely insane. A U.S. bobsledder even got trapped in his own hotel bathroom for so long that he burst through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man. And another athlete went to step into an elevator only to see that the shaft was built but completely empty. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up, and it begs the question, what the hell happened here? People were also living where the hotels were built and were forced to vacate their homes with nowhere to go for this absolutely failed project. It may be easy to laugh at all the photos the athletes released all those years ago, but the hotels at the Sochi Olympics will probably go down in a dark part of history. I'll see you next time.
Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.